Almost 2 months ago, I dropped a 2-hour-long video on Bleach, which ruffled some feathers. Despite the long length of the video, I wasn't able to cover my favourite story told within the Bleach manga. That story is of course the Turn Back the Pendulum side story, which extensively tells the past of my favourite character in Bleach, Kisuke Urahara. We also learn about the origins of the Vizards, so let's shine a light on one of the most underrated backstories in manga and anime. This is my Turn Back the Pendulum arc analysis. Before the video begins, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications to not miss any of my future uploads. The Turn Back the Pendulum arc goes into the backstory of Kisuke Urahara, his time as the captain of Squad 12, as well as revealing the tragic past of the Vizards. We also learn that Urahara indeed had to run away from the Soul Society, and the beginnings of Aizen's plans to betray the Soul Society through his holification experiments. This arc is covered in episodes 206 to 211, and features in the manga from volume 36 to 37. The events of this arc begin 110 years prior to the present day story told within Bleach. The arc begins with introducing the Gotei 13 of the past. During this time, Sosuke Aizen is the lieutenant of Squad 5, while his captain is none other than Shinji Hirako, who we now know as the leader of the Vizards. Hiyori at the time is the lieutenant of Squad 12, which is led by Urahara. The Gotei 13 at the time was going through a lot of changes, with captains of squads changing frequently. The most consistent members of the Gotei 13 who at the time had held their positions for the longest tenure were head captain Yamamoto Genryusai and captains Shunsui and Ukitake. We learned that Urahara has recently been promoted to the captain rank due to the previous captain Kiryo Hikifune being promoted to the Royal Guard. Yoriichi, the leader of Squad 2, has recommended Urahara for the vacant role. After successfully completing the captain's proficiency exam, he was appointed by Yamamoto as the captain of Squad 12. Hiyori was quite upset about her previous captain's promotion, so she decides to stubbornly refuse to accept Urahara as a new captain. She doesn't trust him, probably because he had a position within Yoriichi's stealth division previously. Shinji reassures Urahara that he understandably has big shoes to fill, as Hiyori respected Captain Hikifune as a maternal figure. He advises Urahara that it's impossible to please all of his subordinates. Instead, he should lead them the way that he wants to. If they agree with his decisions, then his subordinates will respectfully follow him, but if they don't, then he isn't up to the task of being a captain. We see that during this exchange, a certain somebody was eavesdropping on their conversation. While Shinji leaves, he removes the Kido spell that Aizen had been using to conceal himself, and asks him how long does he intend to watch him for. Aizen replies sarcastically that his captain is a scary person. However, Shinji eerily replies that it is Aizen who is the scary one. Urahara begins to make changes to Squad 12, which includes the recruitment of Mayuri to help him create a new organization within his squad called the Research and Development Institute. Mayuri is appointed as the second in command of the institute and is recruited under the condition that if Urahara dies, then Mayuri would be given complete control of research and development. During this arc, we also see a younger Byakuya as he is training to become the next head of the Kuchiki family. Ukitake, who is trying to recruit Kain Shiba as his lieutenant, is disappointed as Kain declines his offer, telling Ukitake that there are far more suitable candidates for the position. Ukitake tells Kain of a recent graduate from the academy who completed his studies within a year. This genius prodigy is none other than Gin Ichimaru, who is currently holding a seated officer's position within the 5th squad. Aizen is seen encouraging Gin as he has just killed his squad's 3rd seated officer, clearly showing their evil intentions since the very beginning. 9 years quickly pass as we are now 101 years before the events of the present day. Souls have been disappearing within the Rukongai district. We see 3 souls who are choking on a strange substance and foaming at the mouth, with 3 mysterious figures towering over them as they watch the victims slowly die. They comment on how ordinary souls cannot contain this substance and whether or not they should halt their experiments, but one of the individuals insists that they continue with their tests. News of the disappearances in Rukongai spreads quickly amongst the Gotei 13. Squad 9 are enlisted to investigate what is happening. Kensei, the captain of Squad 9, and his lieutenant Mashiro Kuna, along with their men, begin their investigation. Kensei learns that the 10 advanced guards that he sent out earlier have disappeared and they have left behind only their clothing. It is apparent that the clothing wasn't removed, rather it looks like they just vanished from thin air. Confused by this discovery, Kensei asks one of his men to go back and ask Squad 12 to send out a researcher while he continues to survey the surroundings. Upon learning about Kensei's situation, Urahara asks Hiyori to assist Squad 12, but she refuses and suggests a lower-ranking subordinate to go instead. But Urahara politely tells Hiyori that she is the only one that he can trust with getting a sample from the area. Returning back to Squad 9's camping spot, Kensei's subordinate updates Kensei that someone is being sent from Squad 12 to investigate. While their captain and lieutenant rest for the night in their tent, 3 seated officers stand guard. However, tragedy strikes as they hear a disturbance outside of their tent and rush out to discover the bloody corpses of their seated officers lying on the ground. Assuming their battle positions, Kensei calls out for Mashiro. As he turns his back for a moment, he loses yet another seated officer who is swiftly killed by a lethal slash across his neck. Kensei is then ambushed and stabbed from behind. He looks back to see the attacker as we hear sirens being sounded off within the Serite. The captains are gathered for an emergency meeting. They learn that the Reiatsu of Kensei and Mashiro has disappeared. Tensions are high as Urahara tries to locate Hiyori, but as instructed, she has already left to help Squad 9. Urahara with a heavy heart rushes to prevent Hiyori also falling victim to an attack. He regrets that he asked her to go, thinking to himself, if only I went myself. Head Captain Yamamoto declares that this is a matter of great importance that must be resolved, as the pride of the Gotei 13 is at stake. He further adds that he will deploy 5 captain-ranked Shinigami to get to the bottom of this. Urahara, arriving late to the meeting, requests for permission to also go. The head captain refuses his request. Urahara begins to argue his case, but Yoriichi, his former captain, reprimands Urahara, advising him to maintain his composure. She reminds Urahara that he entrusted Hiyori to leave for the mission. His current behavior is displaying a lack of trust in her capabilities, and is doing nothing more than to dishonor her effort. The 3 captains Love Aikawa, Shinji Hirako, and Rojiro Otoribashi go to Rukongai as instructed by Yamamoto. The Kido captain and his lieutenant Tessai are also ordered to aid any casualties at the scene. Captain Shunsui also recommends that his lieutenant Lisa also be sent to gain experience, since it is rare to come across a situation like this. Shunsui also reassures Urahara, reminding him that Hiyori is more than capable. A good captain must also have faith in his subordinates. Back in Rukongai, Hiyori is seen defending herself against attacks from a mysterious dark figure. Shinji arrives to her aid, as we also get a glimpse of her attacker. It appears to be the captain of Squad 9, Kensei, but it looks like he has undergone a change as his physical features resemble that of a hollow. The other captains also arrive to see Kensei has become hollowified. He begins attacking the captains. Yori, concerned for the safety of Kensei, tries to stop them from attacking him, but Shinji says he needs to be stopped, especially if that is Kensei's real body, alluding to the true monstrous strength of Kensei, which would have been amplified by the holification. They try to take down Kensei without killing him, but they are ambushed by a holified Mashiro. The Kido captain Hachi arrives and tries to subdue Kensei with a Bakudo spell, which fails. His lieutenant Tessai meets a cloaked Urahara, who is using this cloak to conceal his Reiatsu. Predicting that Urahara would still go to Rukongai, Tessai waited for him outside of the Squad 12 building. Tessai and Urahara make their way over to Rukongai. They can feel an unspeakable terror awaiting them. The Shinigami desperately defend themselves against Kensei and Mashiro. Hiyori, who has taken damage, begins coughing up a strange liquid. Shinji, distracted by his concern about her, is cut, while a hollow mask begins to form over Hiyori's face. One by one, the Shinigami are systematically taken down. A beaten Hirako Shinji looks up and sees Kaname Tozen. Demanding to know why he has betrayed his captain, Aizen emerges to answer that Tozen hasn't betrayed anyone. He was simply following orders. Shinji reveals that he suspected Aizen to be untrustworthy and suspicious, hence why he kept him as his lieutenant to keep a close eye on him. Aizen reveals that Shinji was under the influence of his Kyoka Suigetsu. He switched himself with a regular Shinigami in his place. This was the case for the past month while Aizen had been conducting his experiments. Due to the very fact that Shinji distrusted Aizen, he maintained a distance with him, deciding not to communicate with him frequently. Thanks to this, Aizen was able to substitute himself with a Shinigami who memorized his behaviors and responses so as to not raise suspicion. Aizen mocks Shinji by saying that he deliberately did not refuse the promotion to become his lieutenant because he was aware of Shinji's distrust towards him. Sure enough, Aizen successfully took advantage of this, and is now standing before his defeated captain, revealing the details of his plan. Aizen tells Shinji that it is due to his distrust of him that all of his friends are fallen victim around him. Shinji is infuriated by Aizen's words. He tries to attack Aizen, but fluid too begins flowing from his mouth and eyes as a hollow mask begins to cover his face. Aizen thanks his captain as he learns that holification is hastened when the subject is agitated or in an emotional state. Aizen is about to cut Hiyori, exclaiming that all of the fallen Shinigami are his test subjects, but suddenly Urahara, wearing his Reiatsu concealing cloak, attacks him. Urahara then cuts off Aizen's lieutenant emblem, deeming him unworthy unworthy to represent the Gotei 13 that he has just torn apart. Urahara questions what he has done to everyone, including Hiyori. Aizen insults his intelligence by saying he merely came to assist the fallen Shinigami as he was passing by, but Urahara states he is fully aware that they were not defeated in battle. They are undergoing the process of holification. Aizen is impressed by his knowledge and is glad that he arrived. Aizen along with Gin and Tozin escape while leaving Urahara and Tessai to deal with the mess he has left behind. Tessai uses a forbidden technique to transport the injured Shinigami to the Squad 12 headquarters so that Urahara can treat them with his equipment. He tells Tessai that he came across holification through his studies of the ways in which to enhance a Shinigami's abilities. Urahara reveals he created the Hokyoku, which has the ability to break down and rebuild the barriers which separate a Shinigami and a Hollow. Urahara aims to treat the 8 fallen Shinigami with the Hokyoku. Despite much effort, Urahara fails to reverse the holification by Aizen's experiments. Stepping out for some fresh air, he is apprehended by guards who inform him that the Central 46 have demanded Tessai and Urahara to be arrested. Arriving at the Central 46 building, they are both questioned about their whereabouts the previous night. They accuse Urahara of conducting holification experiments, but he refuses these allegations and asks who misinformed them. They remind Urahara that he is not to be asking questions here, but trying to clear his name, he asks if it was Lieutenant Aizen who informed them. However, Urahara is warned again and told continuing to be disobedient will result in the worsening of charges that are against him. Urahara, however, continues to fight for his innocence and states that it is Aizen who has been conducting the experiments. Himself and Tessai were simply trying to save the others. The Central 46 clears Aizen's name by saying he has over 124 witnesses who can testify for his innocence, and that frankly Urahara's plea of non-guilt is ridiculous. Guards also confirm that there is evidence of holification experiments within the Squad 12 building. They decide to send Tessai to the underground prison for the use of the forbidden technique, and to banish Urahara to the human world forever with his powers removed from him. Urahara is told he is responsible for deceiving and injuring the 8 Shinigami he tried so desperately to save. Finally, they conclude by stating that Kensei and the others are to be treated as hollows and killed. As Urahara argues, a concealed Yoriichi appears within the Central 46 building and teleports Tessai and Urahara to an hidden area under Sokyoku Hill. Together they use Reiatsu blocking Gigai and leave for the human world, where Urahara promises to understand how to reverse the holification done to his fellow Shinigami. We return to the present day with the Vizards ready to face off against Aizen in the fake Karakura town. Shinji says indeed they are indebted to Urahara for everything he has sacrificed and done for them. When I do videos like this, I do these summaries to refresh my own mind about the events that I'm talking about. Most of the time the material I cover I watched over 10 years ago. All those years ago I remember this flashback really impacting me. I held it highly as one of my favourite backstories told within anime. Revisiting it brought back a lot of the intensity I experienced the first time watching it, seeing the hopeful and promising future of Urahara as he is promoted to a captain, and then 9 years later he is accused of a crime he did not commit. A whole new level of turmoil is added when he is accused of hurting his friends that he spent the whole night desperately trying to save. It wasn't just Urahara who had his future stolen from him by Aizen. The Vizards each faced a similar fate to Urahara. The only difference is that Urahara willingly sacrificed everything to help his friends. The Vizards were the unwilling test subjects of Aizen. They, through no fault of their own, had their lives changed forever. Prior to their holification, they were members of the Gotei 13, living fulfilled and happy lives. They had ambitions, friendships, and a future that they looked forward to. After the experimentation, the Central 46 deemed them to be no better than hollows. Once an integral part of the Soul Society, they are reduced to villains. Knowing they can never return to the lives they once had adds to the trauma of being holified. As they lived in isolation for all of those years, they built their hatred for Aizen, hoping to one day have their retribution. What they had to endure was very disturbing and left me feeling incredibly sorry for these characters. Kubo does well to convey why the Vizards hate Aizen. Until this point in this story, I didn't really hate Aizen. However, after this backstory, it made me feel really emotionally invested in seeing Aizen's downfall. Prior to this flashback, we knew next to nothing about the Vizards, aside from their ability to don a hollow mask. I always loved how the backstory revealed that most of the Vizards are incredibly powerful, as they were captain ranked in their previous lives. We also learned that Aizen had been sinister since the very beginning, showing that his actions backed his motives. He was planning holification experiments during his days as a lieutenant. This whole arc is a character-driven story. The Vizards, Urahara, and Aizen are all well developed and are given satisfactory backstories, which explain their current roles within the story. Urahara is shown newly becoming a captain. We join in his happiness as we see the early days of him getting accustomed to his new role. When tragedy strikes, he is left to treat the holified Shinigami, Urahara is left to pick up the pieces of Aizen's twisted experiments. It's heartbreaking to learn that he is accused of experimenting on the people he is trying to save. The turmoil for Urahara begins upon finding out that Kensei's Ryatsu has disappeared. He immediately worries for his lieutenant Hiyori and her safety. His sense of compassion leads him to feel regret for letting her go to Rukongai. Instead, he wishes that he had gone in her place. When he arrives and witnesses Aizen at the scene of the crime, he lets him escape. Along with the burden of undoing the effects of the experiments, Urahara's character is tested to the limit, but he focuses on trying to save his friends. When he is summoned to the Central 46 and accused of crimes he did not commit, it is incredibly emotional. You feel the sense of betrayal that Urahara must be feeling. The level of injustice and the blame being pinned on one of the most compassionate and empathetic characters is infuriating. Filled with a sense of regret and an inability to help his fallen comrades, and having the Soul Society turn their back on him, how can you not feel sorry for him? When the Central 46 state that Aizen's name has been cleared, and he has multiple witnesses to testify his innocence, we see just how deep his sphere of influence is. Ultimately, Urahara now lives a life of isolation, and despite the Soul Society being wrong, they won't accept him back. His sacrifices do pay off though, as he ends up saving the lives of the Vizards. Urahara is saved by Yoriichi Shioin. She too gives up her captain rank and leaves behind her noble family status for the sake of saving Urahara and Tessai. Yoriichi and Urahara have a long-standing friendship, as they were trained frequently together in their younger years. She too recommended Urahara as the captain for Squad 12. After saving both Tessai and Urahara, she is annoyed at them for not involving her in their plan. She leaves the Soul Society with them, giving up her status, positions, and ranking, making the ultimate sacrifice for the sake of her friends. Kubo introduces to us a Gotei 13 from the past. The time appears to be joyous and peaceful. Looking at the characters interacting, it looks like a happy place to live in. I always felt a unique connection to this past, and its version of the Gotei 13. It feels refreshing to see younger versions of familiar faces, and being introduced to new characters like Byakuya's grandfather. The beginning of this flashback really sets the stage, letting us know it was a time of peace for the Serite. During this era, the Gotei 13 was undergoing a lot of changes. The captain positions were constantly changing, due to promotions, retirements, or captains passing away. We see the Gotei 13 as it finally settles with its members, with the recent recruitment of Kisuke Urahara, but Kubo ends up destroying the world and the characters he just made us begin to feel accustomed to. With his own hands, he brutally crushed the morale of some of our most beloved characters, like Urahara, Hiyori, Shinji, and the rest of the Vizards. Indeed, the end of the arc features a sadistic plot twist, and it is a tragedy to experience what Urahara and the Vizards had to endure. Their past is an unspeakable one. Their trauma was inflicted upon them by Aizen, and the story thoroughly explains the characters' motivations on why their hatred for Aizen is justified. Having just re-experienced this portion of the Bleach story, it is still one of my favourite arcs within Bleach. I hope that this video has refreshed your memory and given you some form of appreciation for Urahara and the Vizards past. If you want me to cover more Bleach arcs or character analysis, then leave a comment to let me know.